Welcome to the podcast. Always good to have you with us. Recently, I was driving down the freeway, and there was a massive billboard on the side of the road, as there is all over America. And it just said this. It was an advertisement for holidays and vacations and getting away. And the tagline on the billboard was, "Take the vacation you deserve." Said, take the vacation you deserve. Listen, one of the things as Americans in particular, I can speak to Americans at least, is that we somehow have this philosophy that we work hard, put our time in, and because of that, we deserve things. And so advertisement is actually pointed at us from the concept, you know what? You deserve this. Go take this because you deserve it. You know what you need? You need the vacation that you deserve. But it's not just that sense. And what I'm talking today about, as you've seen from the title, is the Spirit of Entitlement. But it's not just that we work hard and so we deserve something, or that companies would actually try to convince us or sell us things by kind of tapping into that thing that says, you know what? I do deserve a vacation and I'm going to go take one. But that spirit of entitlement actually just begins to get worse. I saw on social media just recently, there was kind of a repost of this. I think it was on Twitter. And it was somebody that was complaining about their boomer age parents, because their boomer age parents, now that they've retired, have caught the travel bug. And so they're traveling to other countries, and they're sitting on beaches, and they're buying drinks, and they're staying in hotels. And they were talking about something like, my inheritance is going, is being drunk through a straw right now in Cabo, or whatever it was, whatever the post was. And the social media post was really around, is anybody else irritated that their boomer parents are spending what is theirs? And so there was this concept that, hey, that's my money. I deserve that money, and you're spending my money. So it's not just things that we feel like we have earned that we deserve. It also begins to fall into this thing where it's somehow things we didn't even earn, just things that one day, because of the work of our parents, is going to come our way. We believe that we deserve it and right now, and we're entitled to it. I want to bring this up. This wouldn't be obviously massive revelation for anybody who lives in our culture and our society. But the problem that I run into is that entitlement that seems to kind of be around people, that we deserve something, we have a right to something, we are entitled to a certain type of life, a certain type of comfort level, or whatever else it would be. That mindset has crept into many people's relationship with God. And we're actually now approaching God from a mindset that He is entitled to give us things, that God owes us something, that we deserve something. And the problem is when we approach God that way, when it doesn't happen, we get irritated, we get frustrated. Now, and so much of this stuff, and really one of the reasons why I even want to do the podcast and spend 20 minutes with you every week, is just to kind of pastorally walk through some of this stuff, because so much of this stuff is subtle. It's not like blatant. It's not like people are standing there with their fists in the air. God, you owe me a vacation, You owe me the inheritance of my parents. It's subtle, though. And slowly but surely, we don't realize it, but there's this entitlement that's kind of around us that really affects our mindset, and it begins to creep in how we approach God. And now I'm approaching God as if He owes me something. Now I'm approaching God like I deserve something that God is withholding from me. There's certain things I'm entitled to, And if I don't get those when I think I should get them, if I don't, I'm entitled to a certain comfort level in life. I'm entitled to no problems. I'm entitled to a certain house or a certain job, whatever else. So you can fill in the blanks. We're all smart enough to be able to fill in the blanks. I tell this story often, and I'll probably bring it up in another podcast sometime, but it's interesting how much of our frustration in life really comes from we believe that we're owed something, or we believe that we deserve something, and we're frustrated that that's not happening. Either I'm not getting it or it's not happening. I have a story I tell is I was actually got invited to go to a meeting in New York just to participate, not to speak. I was going to sit in on this meeting. So I decided to go. And there was the organizer of the events. They sent the information, the dates, the hotel, and all that. So, the meeting was going to be on Tuesday night. And so I was flying out Monday. So I'm flying out Monday. It was in New York City. So I leave Sacramento, and I land in Denver for the layover. When I land in Denver, I get a voicemail from the lady who was organizing the event. She said, "Bandy, we're just so excited to have you here next Tuesday." And when she said next Tuesday, I stopped and thought, next Tuesday? This event's tomorrow. So I go and I pull up her past emails, and I realized that I had gotten the date wrong, and I was flying to New York City a week early. I'm realizing this while I'm in Denver on a layover. So I immediately turn around. I'd left Sacramento at 8 a.m., and I turn around immediately, and I change my flight to fly back to Sacramento. I get on a flight. I fly back to Sacramento, land at 5 o'clock. But because of that, I had to buy a last-minute ticket to New York now for the next week. Now, usually when I buy tickets, I buy them a little bit more in advance. And when you're somebody who has status on an airline, because you fly on that particular airline, you almost always get you either get upgraded or you always get the seat that you want. It's very, very rare if I don't get. I have one seat that I like every single time, and 90% of the time I get it. But because I had kind of gone last minute, I had to get a certain flight at a certain time. I ended up getting the very back row that does not recline, up against the bathroom, middle seat. So if you've been on planes, there's kind of first class, then there's premium cabins, which are, more space for leg room. But then you get back into just normal economy, which is less space for leg room. And so I had no leg room, middle seat, back row that doesn't decline by the bathroom. And I remember getting on that plane irritated. I fly all the time. I get the seat that I want to get. I don't know if it was a 5-hour flight to get to New York City. And I remember just being irritated, just getting on the plane, sitting in that middle seat. And it was about 30 minutes in where I just stopped and kind of had a realization. And this is going to sound so dramatic, but I am dramatic, so what am I going to say? But I get on, and I realize, what am I doing? Why am I so irritated and so frustrated that I have to sit in the middle seat on a plane for 5 hours? And I realized that I believe I deserve something. I believe I'm entitled to an exit row seat with extra leg room if I don't get upgraded. I believe I'm entitled to an aisle seat. I realize there's just, it kind of creeps in, but I was so irritated and I was so frustrated because I had to sit in a middle seat, which this is not life and death. This is nothing. It wasn't that hard to sit in that seat. This was not suffering. I was just annoyed by it. And so many of us, we don't realize it, but we get frustrated in life because we believe we're not getting something that we're owed. We're not getting something that we deserve. And we slowly but surely begin to kind of point that frustration at God. Things taking, many times for me, it's not just, I believe what I deserve is shorter processes. Something I'm going through is taking way longer than I think it should. I'm currently in a situation right now. I am years into this situation. I would have liked for this situation to have lasted a month. It's lasted 2 years. And so sometimes I'm just irritated because I believe I deserve a month-long process, not a 2-year process. I deserve an aisle seat rather than a middle seat in the back. And we begin to kind of point that frustration at God, and we begin to come to God as if he owes us the things that we believe we deserve. I was probably in my mid-20s, and I had gotten up one morning to go pray. I was at Bethel Church in Redding, and they have a prayer house there, and I'd gotten up to go pray in the morning. And I was frustrated in ministry life. I was frustrated in, I have a call of God on my life. I feel like God's called me to some things, but man, they just weren't happening. Things were going so slow. Things that I thought I'd be seeing, I wasn't seeing. And my prayer time took on like a frustrated bent. All of a sudden, I'm in prayer and I'm just frustrated, and I'm frustrated praying about this didn't happen when I thought it should happen. This is going on with this, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, I just stopped and kind of had another realization. I had just this revelation that I was praying as if God owed me something. That God owes me my destiny, that God owes me a certain life. And I just remember stopping in my prayer time and just realizing God doesn't owe me my destiny. God doesn't owe me anything. And I remember sitting in that prayer room thinking, I'm not the one that left everything in heaven to come and take on flesh, to hang on a cross and die for the sins of others so that they can be reconciled to the Father and spend eternity with him. I didn't do that for Jesus. Jesus did that for me. And I realized I'm approaching Jesus so frustrated because I believe he owes me my destiny. I believe he owes me a life, a certain type of life. I believe that God owes me not a middle seat type deal. And I just realized God doesn't owe me anything. I owe him everything. My life fully laid down to him. And I will tell you that we get offended. We get offended at God because of a spirit of entitlement in our lives. There's a story in Luke that's just a profound story where Jesus, who is walking with his disciples, teaching his disciples, they're seeing signs and wonders. They're seeing demons cast out. They're with Jesus. I mean, Jesus is teaching them about the kingdom. He's teaching them about the greatness that's in them. Jesus is walking with them, but all of a sudden he throws this story in, and the story is the story of a servant who's out in the field working all day long, in the heat, bearing the brunt of the heat, sweating, toiling, working, laboring, comes in the house. And Jesus tells a story because the Bible says that the servant didn't eat and drink first, but first made sure the master was able to eat and drink. Then they ate and drank. And this is what's so offensive about this story for me, is that it says, and the master didn't even say thank you. And the servant just said, hey, listen, I'm just doing my job. I'm a guy that likes gratitude. I like to show gratitude, and I love when gratitude is shown to me. And there's this concept in this story that feels so offensive to us. That how could I go work out in this sun all day long? How could I go work in those fields, come back in, then serve you first before I even serve myself, and you don't even give me a thank you? You don't even say thank you for the work that I just did. Man, Jesus is so hardcore. He says the master doesn't even say thank you. And the servant just said, we're just an unprofitable servant doing what we are called to do. I want to tell you, man, we have to go after this spirit of entitlement. Because when I feel entitled to even something like, Jesus, do you know what I have done for you? Do you know, Jesus, what I've given up for you? Do you know what I've done for you? Do you not see the brunt of what I've been bearing with the sun out there? Do you know the sacrifices that I've made for you? And you can't even say thank you? You can't somehow figure out how to get me the things that I feel at least entitled to a thank you. I feel at least, and we get offended by God. We get offense towards God because he is not giving us what we believe we deserve, because he is not giving us what we believe we are owed. Listen, I'm all for your dreams happening. I want you to live a life of flourishing, of thriving. I want the things that are in your heart to happen. I want your dreams to happen. I want you to live in a great house and have a great job, have money in the bank, all of that stuff. But when we begin to approach God as if we deserve that, as if we're owed that, and then we begin to get frustrated, irritable, or irritated and take offense at God for not doing that, we begin to approach God as if he owes us something. And I want to tell you right now, God doesn't owe us anything. We owe him everything. He gave everything for us. I was the one that fell short of the glory of God. I was the one that sinned, fell short of the glory of God, and it was Jesus who came and found me. I wasn't even looking for him. I was the sheep that was lost, and he came and found me. In my sin, he came and found me. And I think that we need, again, you may say, "Ben, this is so dramatic, it's so whatever, it's so," I'm just saying that we've got to position ourselves. It just says, "Jesus, you don't owe me anything, I owe you everything." And begin to really, really break that thing inside of us that somehow feels entitled to be upset or offended with God because we don't have right now what we believe we should have or deserve. This is, and what happens is we begin to get angry with God because that offense leads to bitterness. Offense leads to bitterness. If you don't deal with the offense that you have towards the Lord because of the entitlement issue in your life, it leads to bitterness, and you begin to get bitter with God. You begin to disconnect from God. You begin to believe that God is withholding something from you. You don't actually begin to believe that God is good. You begin to believe that God is actually withholding things from you that would make your life better. And so not only does entitlement leads to offense, offense leads to bitterness, and bitterness begins to taint our view of whether or not God is actually good. Does he have my best interests in mind? Does he actually love me? Is he actually for me? Is he actually taking care of me? And when I have a tainted view of that, if I believe maybe God isn't good, maybe he doesn't have my best interest in mind, maybe he doesn't love me, maybe he doesn't care, maybe he's not kind, I begin to withdraw. I begin to withdraw and pull back. Mark Batterson, which I don't know. I don't think he's the one that came up with this phrase. He might have actually. Mark Batterson, great author, great pastor. But I saw this tweet from him, and many of you would have heard this. It just said this: mercy is not getting what we deserve. Grace is getting what we don't deserve. I think the reality is, if we really sat down and said, "I'm not getting what I deserve," I would say, yes, that is true. You're not getting what you deserve. That's called mercy. Because what you actually deserve, like we think we deserve a life of comfort and wealth and my destiny, my dreams, but really what we deserve is a life apart from God and punishment. And Jesus came, and mercy says, you're not going to get what you deserve. And then grace comes along and says, you're going to get what you don't deserve. So every good gift in my life, I just say, thank you, Jesus. I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve what you've given me. I didn't earn what you gave me. This has been because of the grace and goodness of God in my life. Thank you for your mercy that I didn't get what I deserve. And thank you for your grace that I got what I don't deserve. Take some time this week and just say, Lord, if there's any area of entitlement in my life that has begun to lead to offense and to bitterness, uproot that thing. Show me where that is. And just give it for the Lord and just say, God, you don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. I want to lay my life down fully for you. And I'm so grateful for all that you've given me.